There it is. So, anyway, Bob Turner here. We're going to call the meeting to order right now. Thank you for joining us. We're starting off on the agenda with just a statement on conflict of interest. And so I'll read it here. In the interest of preserving public confidence in the actions of this board, the chair reminds members of their duty to avoid any conflicts of interest in inquiries as to whether any member knows of any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest with respect to matters to come before the board. So we're going to get rolling. We got a lot to talk about today. First, we're going to approve the agenda for the October 18th meeting. For this meeting here, does anybody want to make a motion to approve this agenda?
I so move.
Thank you, Stag. Anybody second?
Second.
There you go, Nancy. All in favor, say aye or signal by a hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this agenda is approved. So the next matter on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the last meeting, September 17th. Hopefully some of you had a chance to review those meetings or remember the meeting. And so we can make a motion to approve those minutes from last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, David. Anybody second that?
Second.
Thank you, Matthew. So we're approved for the minutes from the last meeting. It's time for public comment. Do we have anybody from the public on board this meeting today?
We do not have anyone in the waiting room on the Zoom, and no one is in person with us. So we can move forward to the next agenda.
Thank you. You're doing a fine job there leading this meeting already. Way to go. This is your second meeting, right?
I think this is my third, but you're the one carrying most of the work for this, Bob. So thank you.
You're doing great. So, okay, no public comment update from the land conservation agencies. We're going to get right into it here. So who wants to start that the land trust updates?
Can start.
Good. Yes, good. You're back.
Yeah.
Ew.
SHC's had two closings since we last met. We closed on the Berea Dam Pasture project, which is now SHC's Bull Creek Preserve at Warren Wilson College, 191 acres. This board did not participate in that project, but it's at Warren Wilson and kind of associated with all of our conservation projects there, which we'll be talking more about later today. And then also Snowball Mountain Phase 2. This is one that Michelle worked on, 64 acres in Buncombe County. Also a fee simple purchase. I don't know if you want to, no, I don't want to put you on the spot, Michelle, but if you want to say anything about that project, you're welcome to.
Sure. Yeah, this property is just below the Snowball Mountain hiking trail off of Craggy, off of the Craggy Visitor Center area. And it's adjacent to a tract that we purchased years ago from the same owners, Christine Cupido and Cyrus Rahman. And it's also adjacent to the Reams Creek Bowl property that we purchased, which this board supported. It's a beautiful property. It's next to the Woodfin watershed as well, high up on the mountain.
Michelle, is that also fairly close to McDarris?
It's not too far. It's like a valley over.
That's it from SHC.
Robert, it's Nancy. If I could just comment 1 minute on the Snowball project. Christine Cupido has been one of our long time supporters, and she and her husband have for years talked about this phase 2 property, coming up, and I'm so glad to hear that we've been able to snag that one too, because that area out there is it's just beautiful. And yeah, the McDarris thing is over on, like you say, the other ridge, Michelle. So but I'm glad to see that one happened. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's just one more piece that's that Cyrus retained And I'm hopeful at some point in the future, he might want to also sell to SHC, and that will fill in a hole surrounded by all these other properties I just mentioned.
Thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's terrific. Is that it for you, Jess, then?
That's it. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, great. Exciting stuff. Congratulations on a couple of those. So, any other land trust updates? Anybody else here to update us on anything?
Yeah, Bob, I don't recall if I've updated the board about our project at Camp Woodson. At the end of July, we did close on 226 acres there, thanks to your support, to create the Fairview Community Forest. Now, it's not open to the public yet. We're working on creating the parking lot right now. 3 miles of trail are in, though, that we've built in cooperation with our partner, Camp Greer. So that's the former Camp Woodson property. We own most of it now, and that's the first acquisition. Second acquisition will be coming up in this fourth quarter of 2025, where we buy out the Presbyterian Church's in-holding, which is where all the camp buildings are located, the interior campus. That's where our partner Camp Greer runs a vocational education program. So community forest wrapped around a vocational education center. We're really excited about it. And I look forward to updating you once we've completed the second purchase.
That's an exciting project, Tom. I was able to do a site visit out there. It's a beautiful piece. Congratulations on that. That's awesome. Any other updates from you, Tom, or any other updates coming from any other groups? Okay, then can we get an update on the Ag and Land Resources update? Are we able to do that?
Yes, yeah, I'll just share a little bit. So Ariel and I just got 7 projects, easement projects approved by the Board of Commissioners. So we're going to be moving forward with those projects, which is really exciting. And hopefully we have a few closings coming up at the end of this month. But yeah, we're finally getting back to more program-related activities. Yeah.
That's terrific. How's the workload going now? You guys were all sidetracked quite a bit with
Yeah, so we had contractors come in and help with EWP for Helene, and that the application for that funding is closing soon. So that's slowly wrapping up, and like I said, Ariel and I are getting able to return to more program-related activities now. So with that batch of 7 projects, we've got a full plate of farmland preservation.
Sure you do. That's terrific. Well, thank you for that update. Moving along, item 7 is a discussion and evaluations and decisions on new projects presented in September. A lot of great comments going around through email a little bit. Stag and Matt had some interesting things and Matt's to say. So I'll open it up for discussion here now. And Stag, do you want to take the start on that? You had some great comments, and I think it'd be great to hear from you on that one.
Okay. Thanks. I'm fairly new, so this one yeah, I had a lot of arguments with myself, and at my age, I lose those arguments no matter which side I take. So thanks to several members of the board that I also talked to. It is steep land, and some places really steep, that isn't, in my opinion, appropriate for be building. So it is the type of land we want to see in conservation. From the Blue Ridge Parkway, a good bit of it, more than I realize now that I've looked more carefully, is in the view shed. It's all in the view shed from Lunchtop Lunchbox Rock, which is one of the sort of destination points along the mountain sea trail in there. And it's also on the view shed from, I've forgotten the name of the park, but anyway, one of the parks there. Um, so
Charlie Bullman Park.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I think it does protect view sheds. Um, and the good news now, at least at this time of the year, is the houses above it, which was one of my concerns. Very few of those are visible at this time of the year. They probably be more visible. One of the dangers, of course, is if this did get developed, once it's developed, nothing keeps new developers from putting, eyesores, huge mansions or whatever. So from a viewshed standpoint, a watershed standpoint, I'll defer to others. It does form either watershed that flows across it, of course, into Hog Creek, as they said, and we did see some of the springs on that property. And also talking with Carl, he helped me understand that the leverage we're getting is quite high, actually much higher than in the formal documentation from SHAC, because SHAC is appropriately very conservative in anything they put in writing. So that helped me get more comfortable about the leverage we're getting here. Because my prior was in both of those, all the landowners, the two McDarris and the other one, we're just having to supply the transaction cost, which was really high leverage. So I now support this project and answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Stack. Appreciate the enthusiasm in this project too. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, Bob, it's Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy.
I had a question for Matt. One of the comments that Matt made in his responses to Stag's emails had to do with minimum service, emergency service road requirements. And this is really something that since Helene, I think is important that we look at. And I am going to go to my friends at the planning board, and I think that this is something that should be one of the requirements when these subdivisions are built is access by emergency vehicles. And I wanted to ask Matt if there's any precedence on that from stopping or encouraging developers to put roads in so people can get to them.
When you get through the subdivision approval process, whether it's with the county or the city, there are minimum standards for emergency service access. They can sometimes be flexible and ultimately comes up to the decision of the fire marshal. That may include turnouts at certain distances. That may include eased slopes for steep roads for certain lengths. It requires cul-de-sacs at certain distances from intersections in the new subdivision ordinances typically. And if the wanted to go really crazy, if the houses are sprinkled, there's sometimes some flexibility that the fire marshal would allow due to the nature of those sites being harder to get to. A lot of those minimum standards do drive a larger footprint of the roadway. So that's one of the reasons. And, there's a lot of nuances with the steep slope ordinances in general and associated with subdivision development. So I didn't want to dive too far into those, but that's one standard that definitely comes up, and they're not likely to let it go. There's certain flexibilities there, and it's interesting because it is a fire marshal decision and not necessarily part of a group approval from the planning board. It would go directly to them, and a lot of times the planners would defer to the fire marshal if there's a situation where there's something that doesn't meet a standard by the book that is being proposed by a developer.
Okay. Are you comfortable with what restrictions are in place right now?
It's almost a case by case basis. I think that generally speaking, there's the state fire code also that does have minimum standards as far as their size of turnarounds and lengths and things, and that's what the counties and the city typically defer to. Um, I think where it gets a little bit dicey is when the fire marshal has the flexibility to make these calls. Um, I wouldn't be able to comment on whether it's a good or a bad thing in terms of like making a call, but it sometimes is like as a planner, you go in there and you're like, all right, I've got A, B, and C checked, and we're trying to figure something out, and they have the final call, which seems odd in comparison to the process you go through when you're getting a major subdivision approved with all the different disciplines in the city or county reviewing it and providing comment and feedback. That's an interesting aspect of their job. It's not to say that it's not necessary or definitely gives us good guidance, generally speaking, but it's a little different than the typical planning process when the fire marshal makes a call on something.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else have any comments on Hawk Creek?
What was the evaluation score for the project?
That's a great question, David. I'm about to pull it up right now, actually, to share it with y'all before you have to vote on it. So the only vote today will be for this project. The board has already voted on Warren Wilson. So when we get to that point, y'all can just discuss it. But the score for Hall Creek was 66, and that's out of 100. And I wish I had numbers to compare it um, to give y'all a little bit of reference. But I think there were 7 submissions from board members. And then, yeah, the average score ended up being 66.
Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong. It's typically we're running around 75. Is that a normal? Do y'all recall?
I think it is, but there's a what is what is our what's our low and our high?
I have an email from Ariel when we were looking at the September meeting, and she mentioned that our typical good score range is between 70 and 95.
Okay.
Now, she also mentions, let's see, there's a 60 to 75. So I think that's I think we had the Land Conservation Advisory Board kind of scoring system, and then we went over to the farmland preservation.
Right. Yeah.
So in the farmland preservation, the 60 to 75 would be a good range.
Okay.
So I think when they started using that, maybe our range came down just a little bit. So if you're using the 60 to 75, it puts it pretty much right in the middle.
Okay.
And maybe low on the 70 to 95, but
Good.
Can I ask? I like to ask Michelle and maybe Jess too. So I'm confident from what I remember that you guys have your own scoring, like you have an evaluation process, you have an advisory board, you bring projects to them. And so I'm assuming that this went through that entire process and that
Oh,
you
yeah.
as an organization felt like this was an important project to put forth to this group. So can you just talk real quick about like your process? Because I think that might give some of the new folks, including myself as a reminder, all the legwork that goes into vetting these projects.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, David. So we have, yeah, a multi-stage evaluation process for every property we look into. First of all, we have a prioritization model, a GIS-based model that we use to help us analyze everything. Our Land Protection Committee meets to review every project and make recommendations to our board. We also have a project selection criteria form that we complete that tracks conservation values, factors weighing in favor of or against a project. And then finally, our board reviews and approves every project we do. So there's a multi-phase, and then there's also lots of internal discussion among our land protection team. The whole team reviews every project together before it even gets to the land protection committee review stage. We work in a 10 county region, and we turn down a lot of projects. So this one, we went through our whole prioritization, review and everything, and we determined that this project was worthy of our limited time resources and financial resources. I look at the long-term view of things, and to be able to protect 63 acres within the city limits of Asheville that's adjacent to the Blue Ridge Parkway and the Mountains to Sea Trail, it's important, I think.
Yeah.
I have a question. I think a point of clarification. I checked the zoning and everything. I believe it's in the county, but it's adjacent to the city. Sonley Woods is in the city, but that parcel is showing in county as
Okay.
far as the map Asheville, but that's not overly relevant at this point. One question about how you land on, where does the conversation come up about approaching the Land Conservation Advisory Board in a project like this? Is it at the very beginning when you're vetting the project, or is it come in a little later?
Yeah.
Just curious.
I would say at the beginning of a project, one of the first things we have to figure out is, does the landowner need to get paid? If so, how much? And if so, where would we be able to raise the money? So we think about the funding from the very beginning of a project, because if there's no money available, then that helps determine whether or not we'd be able to do it in the first place. So before we go through all of our internal vetting, we need to make sure that there's viable sources of funding out there.
So I guess that means that pretty much all of your different groups that are reviewing it through the process know that this is a potential candidate for that type of funding. So
yeah,
if somebody had a problem with it, in theory, it would come up in that process as well.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, we had a long conversation on our land protection committee meeting about it. And we determined that the steep slope development risk was, definitely worthy of avoiding. Josh Kelly sits on our land protection committee, and he definitely pointed out the benefits of preventing steep slope development in this specific area.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one thing I wanted to clarify on what Michelle had said, that our board is made up of a variety of professionals and community members who may or may not have land protection expertise, but might have other, talents that they're bringing to our board. But our land protection committee is specifically made up of individuals who have a lot of skills and a lot of expertise in land conservation specifically. And they, similar to this board, they make recommendations to our board to approve projects. So that vetting process is kind of first through the critical lens of land protection experts that then recommend that our board, who may or may not have that expertise, approve a project.
So when I was thinking about this project, it sounds like this scored lower than the average good scores. But I was looking at this project from the perspective that yes, it can be developed. And if it was developed because of those steep slopes and all the water resources on the property, you would have negative impacts for sure. The visual impacts as well. Now, the density of that development wouldn't be probably great because of the limitations of the steep slope ordinance. And there's height restrictions, and there's all sorts of restrictions that come into play. But we just don't know it unless we lay this out, like, oh, you can only get 5 houses or 10 houses or 50 houses. We wouldn't be able to answer that question. I mean, we could give a ballpark based on density that you can get based on just a basic number, but there's a lot of factors that come into all that. So at the end of the day, this property could be developed and it would be problematic for the natural environment. And so at the end, even though it's a lower scoring one, I still think it has value to protect.
I'd also like to point out that when the funding is coming out in the fiscal year that this board has to allocate towards projects, Ariel and Martha are very carefully conversing with all of the land trusts about prospective projects. And we're planning at that point what projects we would bring to this board. And it's not like those funds are allocated. Obviously, this board has a role in approving projects, but it's almost a non-competitive process in that we are demonstrating our need, and Ariel and Martha are already thinking about whether or not there's funding available for those projects. And so I think when, scoring is important in that it's demonstrating the merit of a project. It's creating the historical trail that people in the future can look back and say, oh, they went through their processes, they verified the importance of this project. But ultimately, if it's scoring a little lower, but the money is there in the pot to be expended for conservation, I think it makes sense to approve projects that with funding available for the projects that are there. It would be different if there were 20 projects coming at you and this one didn't rank because and there wasn't funding enough to get down to that level in the pot, but because the pot is full of these funds that almost need to be expended in order to demonstrate the need to our county commissioners. I think there's a little bit of a responsibility of being aware of keeping funding flowing for conservation in the region as well.
Yep.
Jess, you just raised another question in my mind. Among our commissioners, Terry has obviously been the leading champion of conservation for many years. What's the rest of the commission, the sort of the temperature or whatever you want to call it, of the rest of the commissioners now? Because I don't know a lot of the other commissioners.
That is a great question, Stag. Nancy, do you have a better sense of that than I might?
I mean, I know the commissioners, and I don't know. There's one or two that I don't know, but I would say that in this time in the history of Buncombe County, this is a commission that is very supportive. And I don't know if Michelle and you guys would agree with me or not, but I see that they want to conserve the property. They are sort of they always walk the tightrope between what we do out here and what Raleigh wants us to do. And that is a real tough road because Raleigh has so much influence on things. So you've got Terry, you've got Al Whitesides in the city, Parker, who's into solar energy. I mean, you've got a good group of people there that understand how important this is for our area. And Martha, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I'm very pleased with what our board looks like right now.
I've only been to the Board of Commissioners once, and I think if Ariel was here, she may have more to add. I'm still learning kind of the different thoughts and opinions of our different commissioners, but thank you for sharing, Nancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me,
Well, I think as a whole, the county commissioners are generally very supportive of conservation and the work that this board does.
Yeah.
okay, let me keep the meeting going here a little bit. We got a couple new projects we want to evaluate today too, so we'll try and wrap up the comments if we can on this project and get to a vote. Thank you for the background. That was interesting to hear. I think we should note too that these projects often take 5 years, 10 years. They're in this pot, this pool where these groups are looking at them. So it's a long process. They vetted them, and now it's up to us to finally make a recommendation to the board. Let me ask a quick question. What is the ask here for this project again, Martha?
The funding ask?
Yeah, from our board.
Let me pull up the presentation from last time, unless
45,000 or something like that. Is that?
It's 200,000 for the acquisition, plus, let's see, the total ask is $254,000, and that's acquisition plus transaction costs.
Okay, and what's our current budget in the end of the fiscal year? Can we remind everybody on that real quick? So we have what's in our pool now, and that's a
Let
tough
me,
question real quick, but if we had some feel for this, it would be good before we vote.
I do know, I'm looking at a spreadsheet that Ariel has now. I don't know the number, but I do know that when planning for this year, Ariel had already put in the anticipated requests from this board into that planning document. So we have we have funds to approve this project. It
So
won't.
the funds are there for this and future projects that will come up before our fiscal year end, which is when? When is
Fiscal year
our
end
budget?
next summer. We're in fiscal year 2026.
I think
Yes.
that June 30th is the end of the calendar.
June 30th.
Yeah.
And so we project we have enough funds now for those that are in the pipeline.
Yeah,
This is a pretty big ask as asks go.
Yes, yeah, and I
Not
can
just
have,
transaction fees. There's a bigger number here. So just to remind everybody on that. Martha, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say that I'll make a note of this question, and when Ariel gets back, I can have her send that information out to everyone. I'm sorry, I can't give y'all an answer right now.
That's right. Just to remind everybody, some of the new people we had, I think 750,000 for this fiscal year allocated to our projects. Is that accurate?
Yes, but this, I will say that the purchase price request is not coming out of that cost. Also, I don't think it was 750 this year. It was lower this year.
Yeah. Was, yeah.
But the purchase price is coming out of bond funds.
Okay.
Okay, that's good to know.
So what's
Yeah.
actually coming out of our funds, sports funds, is just the transaction costs. Is that accurate? So roughly
Right.
45, 50,000, somewhere in that neighborhood is what we're actually voting on right now. Is that accurate?
You're voting on all of it, because this board, for this type of bond funding, the process is that this board approves those funds.
Yeah, I asked Ariel a similar question. I can't give you the quantitative answer, but Ariel basically said that from the bond fund standpoint, which is not specific, it's sort of not explicitly allocated to each of the different areas of ag, this, and passive recreation, as I understand it, but that if anything, for the land conservation segment of the bond fund, we need to get moving or the money could get used in other ways.
Right.
So Ariel said, it's time to,
Right.
from that perspective, do this to show the public that we are carrying through on the commitment to use some of the bond funding for conservation, if that's a good way to say it. Nancy might be able to help me here.
No, it's good. Yeah. Yes, that's what we have to do. We have to show that, that they made a good decision on putting the bond through. So, yeah.
Good. Well, unless there's any further comment, are we prepared to vote on this project? And if there's any further comment, I'll be quiet for a second, and then we'll ask for someone to make a motion to approve this funding. Any comments?
This is Bruce.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody second that, please?
Matt, I'd second.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, let's put it to vote. Everybody in favor, raise your hand or say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
That seems to pass unanimously. Am I right, Martha? Look like everybody.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations. Another project.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Appreciate the thoughtful consideration for this one.
Thanks, Michelle, for your hard work on it.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk about Warren Wilson project. Jess, that's one near and dear to you. Do you have something to say about that one? You're muted,
You're
Jess.
muted.
All right, thank you. I do. May I share my screen? Is that okay? It looks like I have the ability.
If you have the ability, yes, go for
Okay.
it. If not, I
I'm going to share because the last that are you all seeing a PowerPoint with numbers red and black?
We are, yes.
So I wanted to share my screen because The last that we had talked, the state funding source that we're requesting funds from had not yet made funding decisions for the year, but now they have. And we weren't sure, you may remember this ranked number 1 in the state, and Daisy Hill and Cinderella Pastures was 6th, and we didn't know whether or not that would get funded. This did get approved by ADFP, so we will not be asking this 196,775 from the bond now. So now our total request on this is 858,083. So this project, y'all may remember the board approved and funding was approved for $311,000 for the transaction costs on these 4 easements, which is 4 separate easements. So that comes out to not that high of a cost per easement. But this is for the actual purchase price of the easements themselves. So we have expended every potential funding source. The bond is sort of the final push. All these funds would be coming out of the bond, and they have been considered for a long time. We've been planning to make this ask. Even back when we came with the transaction cost request, we had we'd let everyone know that we would be coming back for purchase price dollars, but now we know exactly what that remainder price tag is to get these projects done. So not the full 1,054,000, luckily. And we did have another site visit. Stag and Nancy Edgerton were able to come on a brief site visit at Warren Wilson with Martha and Ariel. I don't know, Stag, if you want to say anything about our visit. It was brief but lovely.
For me, it was great because it really helped me understand the total value of the project, which goes far beyond just, conserving land and keeping it in a combination of farm and forestry and conserve, because it's such an integral part of the purpose of Warren Wilson as a, liberal arts college for promoting, holistic thinking about the land, the environment. Dean Ellum, did I get the name right?
Yes.
Spoke to us. So to me, this really should be the poster board of what we can do with the bond fund. So, yeah, I think this project is just terrific.
Thanks, Stag. And I was chatting with Martha in the background. So the board had voted on the $311,000 in the past. I think we might actually still need a vote on this because it's a separate funding request.
Yes, a vote since it's a different funding request. You're right, Jess. Thanks for catching.
So let's summarize that funding request then. Can you just put it in a quick sentence or two? What are we asking the board to vote on here?
So we're voting to approve $858,083 of bond funding towards the purchase price of the 4 conservation easements. The total purchase price is over $5 million. And in your materials, and maybe I've got it here. Here we go. Let's see. So we're somewhere in between these two values of 12.9% and 13.5% of the total project cost that's being requested here. I have not run that number with our new number now that we know that NCDA has approved funding.
So the ask of this vote is, we need to just summarize the dollar amount that we're asking for the vote.
It's $858,083.
Okay, 853, and we have the budget for this. This has been already considered and allocated as such. And I too have been out to that project a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful property. And so are we prepared now? And I'm conscious of time here. We've got 3 projects to look at. But are we prepared to vote on this as a board? If so, would someone please?
I move that we approve the funding for the Warren Wilson project.
Okay, any second on that?
Yeah, this is Nancy. I second that motion.
Okay, then by show of vote, hands or aye, please raise your hand and vote for this project.
Aye.
That looks like that's unanimous again, I think, Martha. So this motion passes, and congratulations to Jess and Warren Wilson.
Thanks, everybody.
Great project. Now we're about to get into new projects. Let me just ask everyone: does anybody have a hard stop now? We try to end these right at 9 o'clock. It's gonna go beyond that for three projects we'll be looking at. Does anybody have a hard stop, or can we continue till 9:30? Let's say. Anyone have a?
I'm good till 9:30. I have another
Yeah.
call at 9:30.
Yep, 9:30.
Likewise.
Me.
Okay, that's good. So that's our goal, 9:30 to wrap it up. So I'll leave that up to the discussions from these new projects, and we can go ahead and start with Brian and Barbara Cole project.
Okay, sounds good. Tom, I'll go ahead and share my screen so you can start presenting. Okay, can everyone see?
There it is.
Awesome.
Thank you, Martha. Good morning, everyone. It's great that you're making some time for Conserving Caroline to present three projects to you that coincidentally are form a cluster there on the Black Mountain Scenic Byway in the Broad River Priority Region. We are requesting bond funding for this first project, the Cole project, also called the Duck Branch project, totaling $176,000. So we go next slide. Yeah, so we're asking for that $176,000. We're expecting to use that as leverage to match a request to the North Carolina Land and Water Fund for $181,500 bucks and an additional $18,000 in transaction costs. This would be a state-held conservation easement. When we apply for money to the North Carolina Land and Water Fund, the easement ends up in the hands of the state of North Carolina. So you have that protection that comes with a state-held conservation easement. The landowner here, as you see in the bold type at the bottom, is proposing to donate $128,500 of easement value. We submitted an application to North Carolina Land and Water Fund, the grant cycle that just ended. So the Land and Water Fund Board of Trustees met first week of October, and the Coles, they almost made it, but not quite. They got a score of 73. A score of 75 would have been a winner. So they were 2 points shy. So we're going to retool that application. We're very confident we can make this work. For one thing, we can pick up an extra point because, as you'll see, the Coles property has been added to a newly designated natural area designated by the Natural Heritage Program of the state of North Carolina. So that was exciting that the investigation that came from promoting this project led to a new natural area being designated. So that's going to pick us up a point because we can add it to our new conservation plan for the Upper Broad River. So that'll add a point to the score, it gets up to 74, and then the Coles will donate some more easement value. And so we think we can get them up to a score of 75. All right, next slide, please.
Tom, the scoring system you're talking about, is that the same one we're using here, or is that a different one?
Yeah, that scoring system is the North Carolina Land and Water Fund.
Okay.
They have their own scoring rubric, of course, and a score of 75 has proven time after time to be a winner. And the Coles were just out of the running. It was a really competitive grant cycle compared to the last few years. But when I talked about a cluster of projects, and these three projects are all clustered together here, you see you're out here on Highway 9, just kind of equidistant, maybe as a crow flies between Black Mountain and Bat Cave in Henderson County. But the Cole project is there in red, 62 acres. We can go next slide. Okay, there outlined in yellow, is the Duck Branch project owned by Brian and Barbara Cole. I should mention Brian Cole. Some of you may know Brian Cole from his days as the supervisor of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service office in Asheville. He retired from that about 10 years ago. But Brian and Barbara bought this land back in 1990. They are right across Highway 9 from the two other projects I'll be presenting to you. And I wish I could say that the skill of Conserving Carolina made this happen, but it was happenstance. The Coles just called us while we were working on the Light Center project, and we were able to accommodate them. But they are protecting one side of the Black Mountain Rag Scenic Byway, and then on the other side, the two other projects I'll present to you also protecting the view from that scenic byway. So the farm, the hayfield at the Light Center is outlined in purple, and then the nature preserve at the Light Center is outlined in aquamarine. But we'll talk about more about those projects in just a second. First of all, we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, now as we're zooming in, the Light Center, and I said we'll talk about it later, but I better mention this. That dark or that solid green there in the lower left, it's identified in the legend as other conservation. That's an existing conservation easement. And that's a conservation easement that was donated to us in 2024 by the landowner there at the Light Center to jumpstart the conservation process. So it's really been great to establish that as an anchor. It's not that large. It's only 2 acres, but it does protect the view to a certain degree from the scenic byway. It's also protecting a stream that runs through there. There's a unnamed tributary of the to Duck Branch on that little project. And it adjoins, except for Highway 9, it adjoins the Duck Branch project. But there you see ample 300-foot riparian buffer on this project and a lot of water resources. In fact, this project scored as a medium priority in Conserving Carolina's Riparian Corridor Conservation Plan for the Upper Broad River watershed. But what you're looking at there is 62 acres. Next slide, please. Yeah, scenic viewshed protection. 1,600 feet there of frontage on the Black Mountain Rag Scenic Byway. You see a little map there. The scenic byway runs from Henderson County all the way up to Black Mountain. And this is a particularly lovely stretch there in the Broad River Township. And the photo you're seeing is a wildflower meadow that the Coles maintain. Now, as Jess pointed out in another presentation, we can't force a landowner to prescribe that they manage land as a wildflower meadow, but we can keep them from developing it. And so today, and as far as I know, for years to come, this will be a beautiful wildflower meadow. But the worst that could happen to it if we're able to acquire a conservation easement here is forest would regenerate. But right now it's lovely, and you're seeing some beautiful fall color there. In back of the wildflower meadow, you see a structure that's on the excluded area that the Coles are obviously excluding from the conservation easement. So the structure won't be on the conservation easement area, but that scenic strip of land along Highway 9 will be part of the conservation easement. Next slide, please. Yes, I mentioned the water resources. So 780 feet of the Duck Branch, the named stream will be protected on the project. We were looking at that on the aerial photo. And then all kinds of unnamed tributaries flow into Duck Branch over 1,000 feet. You're looking at one of those. You're looking at Duck Branch right now in the photo on the right, and then a mountain dusky salamander showed up, and that's one of the creatures we hope to protect at this site. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that there's a newly designated natural area. I think everyone on the board is familiar with what a natural area is. It's a site of outstanding natural heritage identified by the Natural Heritage Program. And until we had applied for the Land and Water Fund money, um, there was no natural area designated here. And so the North Carolina Land and Water Fund dispatched a biologist who said, yeah, this is great habitat. The natural area, it's not ranked as high as others. It's ranked moderate in terms of quality. But as you can see in that map on the left, the entire project, almost the entire project, except for the wildflower meadow, which of course is human managed, so they don't include that. Otherwise, the entire project is included in this newly designated natural area. And then the map on the right, thank you very much to Equinox Environmental for loaning out Owen Carson, who is a member of our board, full disclosure. Owen works as a plant ecologist for Equinox Environmental. But Owen is on our board and he volunteered to go out to the Duck Branch project. And thank heavens he did, because he found two natural element occurrences that the state biologists overlooked. That happens. The biologists are only human, so we like to send at least two biologists out to every project. And Owen made that possible. And Owen located ginseng, which unfortunately, I've been at Conserving Carolina for 20 years. Every year it gets a little bit rarer. The price keeps rising. The Asian market's really strong for that. And people keep poaching it and harvesting it without a license and unsustainable harvest. So there is ginseng on this property. And then another plant that's plant species that's vulnerable in North Carolina, broadleaf coreopsis, is found on the site. And there's a little patch of sweeter soil, and it's you see it outlined in yellow there, that's supporting these rare plants. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, public access. The Coles live on the property. Now, like I said, they're excluding part of the property from this project. But they live there. They have a daughter who also works for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and she has kids. And so they hope to retire to this property, inherit it from the folks. In that sense, I think it's important to note the conservation easement is part of an estate planning strategy to keep the land in the family. So they do have some privacy concerns, but they've agreed to allow the Conservancy to conduct guided hikes twice annually. Next slide, please. So the request again, we're requesting $176,000 from the bond fund for easement acquisition. And then $176,000 total, of which $155,000 for easement acquisition and $21,000 for to cover transaction costs. Now we're going to use that, as it says here on the slide. We're going to try again for the Coles. I'm really confident we're going to be successful. In March 2026, we'll file a new application for North Carolina Land and Water Fund. And we're going to seek $212,400. So that'd be $181,400 for easement acquisition, and then $30,900 for transaction costs. And then, of course, the Coles will be donating $128,500 in easement value. Now, the numbers here, the easement value estimate that we provided, it's based on a recent appraisal of the property right across the road. That's the light center that we're going to look at. So the topography on the Cole property, very similar. I explained in a cover memo to the appraisal I submitted to LCAB why we think it's appropriate to use that appraisal. The Coles did not want to pay $4,000 for an appraisal, and the Conservancy doesn't have it when they're not even funded by anyone yet. So that's why they're piggybacking on the light center appraisal. But the topography is the same. The location is virtually the same. Yes, the Duck Branch project is quite a bit smaller than the light center. But on the other hand, the light center has the really valuable amenity of the Rocky Broad River flowing through it, which we'll take a look at. So we feel good about this estimate. Next slide, which I think this is probably our last one. No. Oh, you're going to see the slide at the end of our presentation. We know that not everyone has a chance to come out and see our projects. So if you go to the link here on this slide, you can take a virtual tour. You can see the road frontage there on the Black Mountain RAG scenic byway that we would be protecting with this cluster of projects. And there is a drone tour. So I hope you'll take a look at the YouTube video. And I think that wraps it up.
So
Good.
I
Tom,
realize,
let me
Good.
interject real quick. So you have two other projects you want to present.
yeah,
And so can you try and leave us 10 minutes at the end to have some open discussion? That gives you 10 minutes for each other
Do you-
project, if that's
do you
possible.
want to have those questions after each project or all the questions at the end?
Well, I think it'd be easier to ask them now if anybody's got any. I have one quick one here. So will you be requesting these funds from this board soon, or are you going to wait for approval from the state? Are you going to use this to say we have this funding in line so that the state will move forward with it, or what's your plan there?
Yeah, we are requesting the award now so that we can cite it as a secured. We get extra points on that state scoring system if we have secured matching resources. So we are requesting those funds now.
So next meeting, we may want to vote on that. Is that what you're suggesting?
If you're going to vote, yes, we definitely want to vote on it at the next meeting.
And if you don't get the award from the state, then what happens to those funds? What happens to the project, do you think?
I'll work with the Coles and see if they're still willing to bargain sell the conservation easement for the cash in hand.
Mhm. So that's something that the board here needs to consider, that if we allocate these funds at the next meeting or a future meeting, the project is not in your pocket, so to speak, yet. So if the project does not move forward in the end, those funds would come back to the county, back to this board. Is that how that would work?
That's the way that would work. You're going to have I presume you're going to, I hope you're going to have a site visit there. I'll have a clear answer from the Coles on that for you by that site visit.
Okay, good. Any questions from the board here on this project?
Good. We make sure we get the link either in a follow-up email or in the chat right now.
I can send an email out after this meeting with that link for everyone if anyone wants to view that video.
I think Bob brought up the questions that I had, the funding and timing and how it all plays together.
Yeah, and I can check with Ariel when she gets back in, what exactly would happen to those funds if the board does approve them and the land and water fund match doesn't come.
Mark, everyone, what Conservative Carolina would say, I'm not sure if this is possible with the bond fund money. We're really confident that we'll get have a winning grant award from Land and Water Fund because we're going to go for a 75, which has always been funded time after time. And it's eminently doable. However, you might say to me, well, Tom, you don't know what the competition will be next grant cycle. Of course I don't. So yes, there could be some whopping projects that suck up all the money, which is kind of what happened this past grant cycle. To the extent that it's possible, we would like to keep trying with Land and Water Fund. I don't know if the board and the county have the patience for that, but again, we're really confident 2026 is going to pay off. I just want to add that. Thanks.
I have a quick question for you. I'm assuming that all of your site work happened after Helene, because I know this area was particularly hit very hard from Helene, and the conditions that we were seeing from the photos are all after post Helene.
Yeah, all the photos were taken. The photos in the latter part of the project. So there's a shot of the Rocky Broad River at the front with beautiful fall color. That was taken pre-Helene, but the photograph of Duck Branch was taken post-Helene.
Okay,
And all the forest shots were taken post-Helene.
great.
Well, these other projects are related, Tom. Do you want to go ahead and present
Yeah,
those?
let's do it. we're going to rock and roll because I think I've teed this up. You understand the concept of the cluster.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, Tom, I think this is the Light Center Preserve. You're good to go with that one.
Okay. Quick note on nomenclature. The landowner is called United Research Incorporated, which sounds like a big, scary pharmaceutical company or a defense company. It is anything but that. The founder of United Research Incorporated worked for the U.S. Navy at the Pentagon. He had a very high security clearance. He was walking by a colleague's desk and he saw on the desk highly classified plans for conducting World War III. And that was an epiphany for him. He thought this is madness. And so he wanted to form an organization that would help people re-search, so re-find common humanity, goodness, light, and grace. So United Research is, I would say it's a prayer-based organization. It's definitely a very spiritual organization. They come out of a Christian background, a Christian basis, but they're also incorporating other belief systems into what they make available to the public, because this is a publicly accessible place. You can go there and you can pray, you can meditate, you can use their library and really, go on your own spiritual journey, I would say. So United Research Incorporated is the 501c3 nonprofit landowner. That's important because they don't take any tax deduction. They cannot take a tax deduction for any value they donate. So this is a great landowner because they're going to the mat for conservation because they do not get any kind of tax deduction for donated value. So the Landowners United Research, the place is called the Light Center. So sometimes you're going to hear me kind of use that interchangeably. I hope I'm not confusing people, but the Light Center is the land, and the owner of the land is United Research, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And as the cover slide here says, this is a request for open space bond funding. So, okay, let's jump into it. Next slide, please. Yeah, we're requesting 282,000, and this is all for easement purchase on 112 acres. In this case, we do have a grant in hand. So we have a signed grant contract from North Carolina Water Fund for 461,800. Of that amount, we can talk about it in a second, but 390,000 is for easement acquisition of that 461,800. The landowner here, United Research, proposes donating 224,000 of easement value. Now, this shot of the Rocky Broad River is pre-Helene. But we're going to see some post-Helene videos that are going to make you feel good about thickly forested riparian buffers. Next slide, please. Yeah, I told you a little bit about the landowner there. We're short on time. You can go to their website there, urlight.org. You see the founder believed, I think it was more than a punster. I think he thought he was genuinely, he was intending to send messages with names for things. For example, the Light Center, it's TLC, Tender Loving Care, right? United Research, Light. So you can go to urlight.org. You'll see these photos there, which is where I got them. And one thing, though, we're going to see a photo of a mill. And I just want to point out that photo on the right, that is the former residence of, I think he holds the record for longest serving Buncombe County Sheriff, Lawrence Brown, who's from the Broad River Township. And we're going to learn a little bit more about this. I'm going to tell you right now that house was built with convict labor. Next slide, please. All right, we've seen this map before. We won't dwell on it. You're smack dab in the middle of Broad River Township in between Black Mountain and Bat Cave. And you see the cluster of projects that we've been talking about. Now we're talking about the nature preserve, which is red. Next slide, please. Okay. You've seen this map before. We won't dwell on it. Again, this is how the cluster of projects fit in, and they're all encircling the initial 2-acre donation made by United Research in 2024. And you see the Rocky Broad River flowing through a gorge, essentially, through the Nature Preserve project. Next slide, please. Yeah. This is an updated map. I spoke to United Research, their board, and to make this a better project and better scenic view protection, they added a 25-foot wide visual buffer strip along the scenic byway. So there will be continuous protection along the scenic byway for 6,000 feet. I mean, that's significant any way you look at it. I don't know if that makes you want to fund the project, but it's significant view shed protection. So the public can drive on that road and they will see 10 years from now what they're seeing today.
Tom?
You see, oh,
Yeah, when you say buffer strip, that means that you'll still be able to see it from the highway. I'm not quite sure what you mean by those words.
so that will be in the conservation easement. It will be a strip of forest that is protected in perpetuity so that the public driving on the scenic byway will always have a beautiful scenic view from the byway. Next slide, please. All right, and so there you see Highway 9, the scenic byway there in the background, and both photos on the right. And like I was just saying, it's 6,000 feet along the west side of the byway. Next slide, please. Yeah, a lot of water quality protection here. I was pointing out the Rocky Broad River, over 2,700 feet of protection, and then over 1,000 feet of unnamed tributaries. And these are really good riparian buffers. It's wherever possible, as you saw on that map, it's 300 feet wide. So really excellent water quality protection. Next slide, please. Martha, we're going to try this. Will you, I think if you, yep, just click, yep. And there's the Rocky Broad flowing into your computer monitors. Now this is pre-Helene. And it's just a beautiful setting. I love this project. Everyone loves their projects, but I really love this project. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, and a couple of rare species. Again, also found on this project, ginseng, and then a rare orchid, small spreading begonia, a beautiful orchid. It's not numerous on the project. It's not numerous anywhere. It's pretty darn rare. But we're glad that this project would be protecting it. Next slide, please. Public access. You can go there now. You haven't put a dime into this project, and you can go walk on their trails because their campus is open to the public. You can go park there where it says the Light Center Dome. And this trail map, by the way, it is taken from the trail kiosk at their trailhead. So you go in from Highway 9, you park there at where it says Light Center Dome, and you saw a photograph of the dome earlier in the presentation. And then you have access to these trails. So already this project is publicly accessible. Conserving Carolina will be acquiring a right to maintain public access as part of this project. So that's the bonus. You've got public access now, and then Conserving Carolina will obtain a right for permanent public access to this project. Next slide, please. The photo on the left is pre-Helene, and then a photo on the right of the trail. But if you're on the trail, it will take you down to the river. It is a place of contemplation. It's a place for passive recreation, for hiking. This would not be a site unlike there's another conserved area on Highway 9 where all the cars park along Highway 9. You probably know it. Some people call it the Cascades. We are working with landowners so that this area does not turn into what they have there, which is a lot of impacts on the natural resources. A lot of people recreating by getting in the water. We're not, public access here does not encourage waterborne recreation or swimming, wading. This is a place for and quiet enjoyment of a really special place.
Tom, I'm gonna hop in really quickly. We're just at 9:15, and we still have to do your other presentation. So if we
So let's get to the next slide then. This is post-Helene, guys. So this site is still there. This is the convict mill. It's really important. I realize I'm very short on time. But it's there. It's an historic site. North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office lists this as a part of North Carolina's cultural heritage. This is where Lawrence Brown, rightly, probably wrongly, used convict labor to mill corn and other flour on the Rocky Broad. He had a mill dam. You see the remains in the mill building. Again, this is post-Helene. It survived. You also see other natural heritage that survived Helene here. But he used convict labor to operate the mill. And that's going to be an important part of interpretation of Buncombe County's history if we're able to acquire this conservation easement. Next slide, please. So we're requesting $282,000 from Buncombe County for easement acquisition. We have all the transaction costs we need, $57,000 from North Carolina Land and Water Fund. That's a grant contract in hand. We have a $390,000 in hand from Land and Water Fund for the conservation easement acquisition. So your $282,000 award to this project would leverage those resources. And we can jump right into the next presentation, or we can take questions.
Well, one quick question, Tom. Is the trail system pretty much still preserved after Helene and passable, no landslides across it or anything like we're dealing with out here?
There are no landslides. Our team just evaluated it, and this is probably not related to Helene. It's probably just related to stuff happening. There are some limbs down, and we're going to take care of those prior to the site visit. But the trails are in pretty decent shape.
Okay,
I would say they don't meet the spec for Conserving Carolina's trail system, which I think we maintain a really high standard, but these trails are open and usable there.
let me interject real quick, Matt, or if anybody has to leave at 9:30, if you got a hard stop, you just go ahead and go. We'll get in as far as we can with this presentation, and then you can follow up with questions at the
Yeah, I
next.
just had a quick question real quick. So the 282 is for the bond, is requesting from the bond, or is it?
It's from the, yes, from the bond fund.
Okay.
And
Unless it's more convenient to take it from another source, but in talking to Ariel, it seemed appropriate to ask for it from the bond fund. I cut somebody off, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tom, start your next one.
Okay, folks, you've seen this project before because you previously awarded $46,000 for transaction costs. So that's why we may not need to spend much time on it all. Again, it's protecting that view from the scenic byway. You see it there here in the slide. It's just a beautiful agricultural property that's in hay. We can go to the next slide. So Jess noted that the Warren Wilson project scored was the highest ranking ADFP project in the state. Well, guess what? This little hayfield tied Warren Wilson, but
You're right, Tom. I'm sorry, I did not say that.
No, you said it. You said it at the last meeting. You noted it, but I just had to get that in there and rib you a little bit. We did ask the state for a heck of a lot less money though for this little project. They did award us $29,000, and then the federal USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service has tentatively awarded $45,942. Why is it tentatively awarded? Because they are waiting for the IRS to confirm that United Research Incorporated has not earned more than $900,000 in adjusted gross income for the past 3 years. It's this little bureaucratic stumbling block. It just needs a box checked, and then we'll have a grant contract. But we consider this money really to be awarded. We just don't have the official word yet. Okay, next slide, please. All right, I talked about this before. We can go next slide. You see how it works with this cluster of properties. We can go to the next slide. And you see in this slide how this cluster of properties fits in so nicely each other, protect the scenic byway. We can go to the next slide. All right, here's the meat of it. You have seen this slide before. Something I noted, I don't have labeled on the map, that's the Broad River Volunteer Fire Department substation. There's a there on Highway 9, just to the north. You're going to see like a red roof building there with a gravel pad. That is the Broad River Volunteer Fire Department substation. It's on land owned by United Research. So that block of land there that fronts the highway is actually owned by United Research. They can't put it in this project. They would love to, but they gave a 50-year lease to the Broad River Volunteer Fire Department to increase, the department's reach in this area. Otherwise, everything you see outlined in red is the project. There is a small wetland component of less than an acre. There is a road that bisects it called Gold Anchor Lane. That's a landmark if you're out there looking for this project on your own. And you can park right on the shoulder of Gold Anchor Lane and walk around this hayfield. Now, guys, if you can see it in that YouTube video. So full disclosure, the Rocky Broad River, you see it coursing through this project. It did a number on the hayfield. There's no other way to put it. It deposited a lot. The Rocky Broad deposited a lot of silt and sediment and some rock. And the farmer, we're going to see him in just a second. His name's Clark Worley. He is trying to figure things out right now. And so he's working with the landowner United Research to figure out how they're going to recover this hayfield. We can go next slide. That's the scenic view. It speaks for itself. This is just a lovely pastoral setting. Next slide, please. There's Clark Worley on the left, young beginning farmer. That's the hayfield there in the center in better days. And then on the right was also taken pre-Helene. The woody buffer on the Rocky Broad River survived, so that's great. It was not particularly, it's kind of thin there because of the hayfield operation. It's just that the river deposited a lot of sediment in the field. It's not something that's permanent. It's something that can be remedied, and that's what everyone's working on. Next slide, please. So there is water quality protection because the field is in hay with the accompanying woody buffer. So 1,800 feet of the Rocky Broad River here. I mentioned that little wetland component of less than an acre. It's about 0.3 there. It abuts that existing 2-acre conservation easement. So we're building off existing conserved land. And as noted, it's part of this cluster of 3 conservation projects. Next slide, please. This project, we're submitting it for bond funding, but under the farm evaluation guidelines, which emphasizes soils are really important. Over 98% of the project is prime soil. That's the best there is in the USDA classification system. So investing in this project is investing in some really rich farmland. Next slide, please. I can't resist I keep showing you these views. We can go to the next slide. And more views. It's lovely. You can go out there and see it for yourself. Next slide, please. Because it's right there on the highway. And there's the sign for Gold Anchor Lane. Next slide, please. And there is the link. Now, what you'll see in that YouTube video of the hayfield, you'll see the drone footage. And you can see that we've got a nice crop of goldenrod right now. And that's because we are working on, Clark Worley and United Research are working on how they're going to get the field back into production. But those prime soils are right there underneath the goldenrod, and we want to make sure those stay in production. Now, someone's going to ask here real quick. It's all in the flood. It's all in the floodplain. No, it's not. There's developable area right there on the highway, and we have an appraisal showing that the conservation easement is worth around about $384,000 on this site. So that's based on an actual appraisal in hand on the 13 acres. I'm happy to take your questions.
So, Tom, some of us are able to stay a little bit longer. If you are, Martha, to keep the meeting going, if anybody has to check out, go ahead. But we've got some time here. I do have some time if others do to ask further questions. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions now.
What amount were you asking for this one, Tom?
We're asking for $46,000 for easement acquisition, and in non-bond funding, LCAB had previously awarded $46,000 for transaction costs.
Right, and so today the total ask, Tom, is about 504,000 for all the projects. It looks like, just to summarize that. I think that's the numbers I came up with. Is that correct? Accurate for all three projects?
You know, Bob, I had not looked at.
Looks to me like 176 for Brian and Barbara Cole, 282 for the Light Center, and 46 for the farm. That comes
Thanks.
to 504,000 is the ask today, basically.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, Bob. Yeah, that would be right.
And does that break out to where there's 155 plus 282 plus 46 in the bond, and then only 21 from the commission?
I really depend on Ariel to guide me on where on the
Okay.
sources of money.
That'd be something I want to understand a little bit better, is that allocation, because there's a lot of back and forth there, and that may be something we need to talk to her about in our next meeting.
Well, so Matt, this is what I'll say. In a phone call with Ariel like months ago, my understanding was all the money I'm asking for that hasn't been awarded yet would come from the bond fund.
Okay.
And that 46,000 for the farm, for the hayfield, that the 13 acres that's previously awarded, my understanding that did not come from the bond fund.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Given the multiplicity of owners, are all the owners aligned that it's all or none?
You know, the great thing here is there are only two owners. There are the Coles on the east side of Highway 9 and the United Research on the west. It's just that United Research has two projects, a farm project and a nature preserve type project.
So two owners, three projects, but everybody's aligned as all in one.
Yeah, they're really pleased that the stars have lined up like they have as far as landowner intent.
I've got to go, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks,
I can
Matt.
circle up with questions after. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We'll fill you in.
I've
Bye,
got
Matt.
one as well.
Same here. Tom, if you can just break out the ask from the board versus the bond, just so we have that clear, I think that'd be super helpful when we're doing the evaluation.
Okay, and like I said, from what I understand for Ariel, these are, because I had it on the slide, they're all bond fund asks.
Great.
Okay, thank you all. And those of us who can stay, Robert, let's just keep going if we have any questions or anything.
Have a great day.
Yep. Bye-bye. Bye, David.
So I've been out to this project when we voted earlier. I've been out to the meditation center of the Dome. It is a very pretty piece of property, and I'd be happy to take another visit if others want to do that. But if we're talking about roughly 500,000, I assume again that's been kind of calculated in our budgeting for the funds this year.
Bob, from your lips to God's ear, but that's the conversation I had with Ariel. I mean, look, you folks make a decision and determine if these projects are worthy. But and Martha, I know you have insights here. My understanding is if you find these projects worthy, shall I say it's more likely than not there's room in the bond fund to fund them. If that makes sense.
And
Yes.
I
Go ahead,
will
Mike.
make a note to double check with Ariel and when she gets back, and we can send out some information to y'all just to clarify. But I believe what Tom is saying is correct. All the funds will be coming from the bond. Um, and then in the interest of time, since it's already past 9:30, I know everyone who had hard stops left. I also have a meeting I have to go jump on. So if no one else has any questions or comments for Tom, yes, Dag.
I have one question actually for Ariel. The last project was 98% farmland. So would that more appropriately be funded out of the ag part of the bond? Or is it a conservation? So just, you know,
There's not a there's not like an ag part of the bond. Um, it will be the same. It's coming from the same place. There's not a different.
well, my
So,
understanding though is there's a different group that has to approve ag.
Yes, so that's for Ariel and I's projects though. That's not for LCAD projects. Um, does that
It's
answer your
kind of,
question?
it's kind of based on how the fund request is coming and why it comes to us, I think is part of that. But we can talk about that maybe more next time. I think it would be really helpful, Martha, if we could get a summary of the budget right now. Here's what we've got allocated for bond funds, for this board funds, and what we spent, what's projected from the projects to see how things are lining up for the balance of the year. If that's
Yeah.
possible. It'd be great
Yeah, I can definitely pass that along to Ariel and we can get something to y'all when she's back next week.
That'd be awesome.
Okay, good. Good.
Good. Well, let's wrap it up since Martha's got to go. And I think this is great, Tom. Very good job there. That was awesome. We rushed you a little bit, but I think you got through it all. And it's all three of them are very interesting projects. So,
Thanks, Tom.
yeah. Thanks.
yeah,
Everyone.
I know you guys are gonna sign off, but you have a chance to look at that YouTube video, it's worth millions of my words, I think. So,
Yeah, I'd love to go back out there again too. We can schedule
I-
something.
I'd love a site visit also.
There will be a site visit. I'll include some of that information in the follow-up email that I send out, but we'll do a site visit within the next month before we meet again.
Okay,
Good job, Martha. Way to
Thank
go.
you. And we do
Nice
need a
job.
motion to adjourn.
right.
Yes,
I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Stag, you second that? Okay.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned. Everybody have a
Okay,
great
thanks,
day.
Bob.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Have a good
Bye.
one.